Say what you want about Cold War's presentation of its narrative and characterizations, but one thing that no one could deny is the story was incredibly dense, with character motivations that made sense. Unfortunately, as Black Ops Cold War was the first part of a larger arc, it relied on sticking the landing for the story to work. This is doubly true for its biggest characters. As we've seen in Reckoning though, it would appear that some of its most important characters have now been written out of the story, for what seems like a little reason, and it's probably because we're jumping ship to the original characters for Black Ops 7. And so, Treyarch needs to get all of those dangling strings out of the way before we can move on to them first. So, in this video, I'd like to go over exactly why the stories of Sam and Zykov are so good, and why now it's almost impossible for them to return. The supposed deaths of Samantha Maxis and KAZIMIR Zykov, the Forsaken. Before we start the video proper though, it's worth addressing a claim that has been spreading in the community since the discovery of the Brainiac intel in Reckoning. I do not believe that this is a hint Samantha Maxis is alive, as many people have been saying. It is confirmed that the brain scan was taken right after Maxis emerged from the Dark Ether in Firebase Z, and that's confirmed by the SAM blueprint found in the director's office in Reckoning that lists the intel's in-game document name, document 4382, that matches perfectly with the piece of intel. Yes, Samantha Maxis could return in some other fashion, such as if the Forsaken was lying, or Richtofen or the SAM AI could also be lying, or just potentially believing Zykov's lies. However, I do not think that's the case, and that's what I want to explore later on in this video. But due to the fan backlash, Treyarch could always change their plans, because people are really ashamed that the character who's literally been there central to the storyline since World at War got killed off in such an unceremonial way off screen. But before I explain all of that, I first need to explore what made KAZIMIR Zykov and Samantha Maxis so great in the first place, before explaining why them being killed off in such an unsatisfying way is as such. And I'll be doing that in a little second, but first of all, I have an amazing service to let you be aware of that will greatly help with playing Reckoning. Enjoy. I have the perfect service to showcase for you today to better your gaming experience. I know you love the Call of Duty grinds, racking up kills, unlocking camos, clutching those dubs, completing zombies Easter eggs, and grinding through the ranks. But let's be real, sometimes you hit a brick wall, whether it's a brutal rank match, a tedious camo challenge, or trying to level up fast with a slow to level weapon no matter the mode, multiplayer, zombies, or Warzone. That's where SkyCoach comes in. And trust me, it's a total game changer. Let's jump in and explain how it works. SkyCoach is the ultimate platform for leveling up your gaming experience, and it's trusted by over 150,000 players worldwide. The reviews speak for themselves. If you are grinding Call of Duty, their pro-level boosting and coaching services can help you dominate lobbies, push through tough content, or just make the grind way more fun. They're not hacking your game, don't worry, you are safe. They're just assisting you in getting better and leveling up. But here's the deal, SkyCoach doesn't just stop at COD. They've got your back for 25 of the top games, like Fortnite, World of Warcraft, Rainbow Six Siege, FIFA, and more. And hundreds more less popular games too. So no matter your niche, whether you are a COD diehard or dipping into Fortnite for some Battle Royale action, SkyCoach has pro players ready to guide you. Let's show how easy their website functions. Simply navigate to skycoach.gg, clean, fast, and super easy to use. Since we're all about Call of Duty, let's head straight to the COD page. You can see all of the boosting and coaching options right here. The left tab showcases the game. If we click Black Ops 6, since it's the latest one, you can see the prices are clear, service buttons are simple, and the features straight to the point. It's easy for you to select what you want. You can level up weapons, they can even help you complete zombies Easter eggs if you are struggling. So simply choose your service, get matched with a top pro, track your order in real time, enjoy your rewards. SkyCoach makes gaming stress-free. The coaching comes from high-ranked pros who know the game inside and out. So you are learning from the very best. Plus, it's safe, private, VPN protected, and if your order doesn't go through, they've got instant refunds, as well as their customer service is available 24/7. That's the kind of reliability we need when we are grinding for that next prestige or sweating in Warzone. So if you are ready to level up your Call of Duty game or crush it in Fortnite and beyond, hit up SkyCoach at skycoach.gg and use my promo code TGR10 for 10% off your order. Check the description, save/copy my code, click the link, and you are set to dominate. So So a big shout out to SkyCoach for sponsoring this video. They are the go-to for all gaming revolutionists, and I hope they help you out immensely too. As we said in the intro, there are definitely discussions to be had about the way Treyarch chose to present the story in Black Ops Cold War, and a lot of that is to be said about Zykov. Having his story entirely take place in optional intel is a definite missed opportunity for Treyarch. However, those that were willing to follow along will likely tell you he was one of, if not their favourite character in the whole game. In my view, his character arc in the game was possibly one of the greatest mysteries set up by Treyarch in the modern era of zombies, even though it was somewhat predictable. So let's go over how this came to be. When we first loaded into the machine, after watching the cutscene detailing a post-Soviet mechanic being forced to seal the reactor back in the 40s, we were greeted by our old friend, the Pack-a-Punch machine. The fact it had survived the ending of Tag the Totem was a shock, and clearly it hadn't survived in one piece. The machine's core had been broken long ago, and in its place, an electronic crucible, spitting pure energy, had been crudely attached. However, the machine itself did work, and this was miraculous in terms of the story, given Jeb Brown required a literal divine intervention of the Keepers to make the machine work in the first place. Furthermore, when entering the Dark Ether, we were met with a new Wonder-Fizz machine, constructed out of parts of the original perk machines we knew so well from the Ether story. Like the Pack-a-Punch, they hadn't survived their journey into the Dark Ether intact, but someone had done their best to repair them, and interestingly, been fairly successful. Clearly, someone was at work in the Dark Ether. Exploring the map more, we could stumble upon the Trial Machine, that, in Cold War, doubled as a computer. Not only that, but from completing the trials, it is revealed that someone is trying to communicate to us from the other side. This stranger, dubbed at the time, was very adept at dealing with the Dark Ether, and even decides to lend us his journal entries to better equip us to deal with the horrors of the Dark Dimension. As we progressed through the maps of Cold War, we gradually were able to build up more of a relationship with this stranger. Through his entries, we learn ever more about his experiences. In a world with little food and supplies, he is forced to put any despair out of his mind and begin hunting the creatures of the Dark Ether for sustenance. Cold War characterized the Dark Ether as an ever-changing world where survival of the fittest was law, and the stranger was adamant he would consume, not be consumed. Gradually, he notices that there are colossal elder gods that roam the dimension, but equally, how there are many humans who have gotten trapped in there too. We learn that the stranger appeared to be pretty handy with machines, and through his tinkering, recovered a machine he called the Forge, matching the inscription of the new Pack-a-Punch machine, confirming he is indeed the man behind rebuilding the Pack-a-Punch and Wonder-Fizz. As he kills more creatures, the lesser beings begin to flee from him, whilst the greater ones take notice. A hellhound, who he names Cinder, becomes his faithful companion, though he regrets not being able to show it affection without getting burned. He meets more human inhabitants who are trapped like him, thinking a local trader is possibly a friend, someone who can help him stay sane. But this trader and his gang betray him, attempting to take the stranger's base for themselves. However, as Zykov has a Pack-a-Punched weapon, they stood no chance. Cinder was sadly killed in the fighting though, bringing the stranger back to square one, alone and far, far away from home. Around this time, he begins work in earnest on a device he can use to try and contact the outside world. Occasionally, he has been able to cross over to our world, seeing how technology has moved on since his imprisonment. Taking note of a new electronic technology, he uses this to construct a computer, the very machine we eventually see as the Trial Machine. Finally, around the time of Outbreak's first month of release, the stranger reveals his identity to us. He is KAZIMIR Zykov, the tank mechanic forced by a Soviet commanding officer to shut down the particle accelerator from the inside at Project N Station, set up by the Germans in an attempt to secure their victory. This is only half of Zykov's story, however. See, the writing up until this midpoint was so dense that the seeds are already sown for his true nature, that of him being the Forsaken. By killing and eating creatures in the Dark Ether, not only is he ingesting Ethereum, him, but he is rising in the food chain of the Dark Ether. We see this confirmed when a Hellhound begins to follow his command, something that should not happen. Furthermore, we see a rare contextualization of the power we regularly wield as players. We don't see a pack-a-punch weapon as anything significant. Not really, since we used it for the first time back in DEVOURER. But ZYKOV's story brings that sense of raw power back to the lore. He was one man, likely with an old Soviet rifle, and yet he was able to utterly destroy a whole gang outnumbering him. It is at this point that ZYKOV makes his wishes known. He wants to return home. He has tried but can't, as the closing of the end station cyclotron from the inside meant he was now bound entirely to the Dark Ether realm. However, at the same time, ZYKOV has been having the same kind of conversations with none other than Peck of Omega Group. Peck, a man whose intellect and prickly personality inherently isolates him from others, really opened up to ZYKOV, who he thought was a friend on the other side who made him feel special and important, especially with his fragile ego. Much like with the players, ZYKOV was expertly playing both sides, but really, it felt at this time that you couldn't blame him. He himself was Russian, but as he explained, while he still walks the earth, Russia and America were allies. He saw no reason why he shouldn't try to pursue whoever could help him get home. At this point, ideas of a powerful entity in the Dark Ether were seeded. The plot intersects with another hidden story in Cold War's intel, that of Requiem's Mole, which could be a video in of itself. To summarize though, Eddie, as the nameless director of Requiem, was leaking very specific information to Omega Group in order to push them towards securing a source of great power that he viewed as necessary for his true agenda, Project Janus. He had his own intelligence agents examine information from the Dark Ether to confirm the existence of a powerful being above all else. Simultaneously, Carver was proposing this idea to the other Requiem heads, as his military knowledge made him see the patterns of a command structure. But the Requiem heads simply laughed at him. Eddie left out information on the Forsaken to test Carver's intuition, and upon seeing it, Carver knew he was right, but equally that the director was keeping things from the rest of Requiem. Ultimately, Eddie had likely already figured out ZYKOV's true nature, not only having Requiem at his disposal, but the early phases of Project Janus. From here, while ZYKOV is manipulating both sides, Eddie is equally manipulating both sides to go along with it. ZYKOV's flaw is that he is unaware of Eddie as a variable in the situation. ZYKOV readily explores every avenue in order to escape, including the daughter of the German Project End Station scientist who was raised in the Soviet Union but was still loyal to the cause, wanting to help establish a Fourth Reich. Here, ZYKOV showed an ability to change and manipulate his voice, speaking to Valentina with the voice of her father, and claiming that the German operation to deploy troops to the Dark Ether and keep them there, lying in wait, was successful. She simply had to open a portal located under Berlin and the world would be theirs. Richtoven's spy network was able to detect this, however, and he put a plan in place to stop it. He couldn't have Requiem act directly, so through pulling Omega Group strings, he allowed the strike team to get captured, leaked Valentina's allegiance to Omega, and further, his suspicion that the being she was talking to was actually this dark entity, the Forsaken. Ultimately, through Eddie's use of the strike team and Klaus, the portal was sealed and the Forsaken was temporarily defeated. Unbeknownst to ZYKOV, however, this was all because Eddie simply didn't think this was the right time to capture him. ZYKOV gets back into contact with Requiem and informs them that Omega are working on a plan to finally bring him home. They have constructed an identical particle accelerator to the one at End Station as well as an amplifier that should be able to finally extract him to the real world. Kravchenko believes that ZYKOV can provide vital intelligence on how to defeat the Forsaken, who is allegedly on the move. However, Omega Group are yet to understand that these two beings are one and the same. What ZYKOV didn't know here was that Eddie once again manipulated Omega through Peck, who he was speaking directly to, under a codename, Argus. Whilst it seems like Peck's idea, it was Eddie's words. They should capture the Forsaken instead of simply killing him. Eddie provided schematics for a containment chamber that was capable of holding the Forsaken, as well as weapons that could be used to destroy his physical form. When arriving in the real world, Zykov makes his true intentions known and explains his past and reasoning. He really was KAZIMIR Zykov. He wasn't originally a Dark Ether entity like the kind we meet in Vanguard. He was unmistakably human, and sadly, this is the reason for his transformation. Already forced to give up his life by his commanding officer, he initially believed that he had at least died for a noble cause, though he was still alive in the Dark Ether. However, gradually, through observing the real world, when he was able to and talking to survivors in the Dark Ether, he came to understand that the brave sacrifices of World War II were ultimately for nothing. During his 400 years in the Dark Ether, which was 40 in the outside world due to the time dilation properties of that realm, he came to the belief that humanity could not be saved, and so it must be destroyed. Given he consumed everything within the Dark Ether itself, devouring worlds and killing gods as he put it, you could even believe his nihilism led him to the belief that all life should end. Clearly, Zykov was a very deep character, with a long and complex story. But there's one missing piece in the plan to capture and contain him: Samantha Maxis. When we encounter people in Cold War who lose their minds in the Dark Ether, the common link is that they gave into despair. This almost happened to Sam, but she managed to hang on. From a primer, Sam in this world was an orphan, who ended up employed by the West German B&D intelligence agency. Info from the multiplayer side of the story actually indicates that Perseus considered recruiting her within her operator bio, but she was deemed so intelligent that she was too dangerous to even interact with, and that she may have in fact been the most dangerous individual in the entire espionage world. Regardless, after discovering Project End Station and informing her old colleague Weaver, she met with an Omega contact who was hoping to defect. This contact, Ravenov, informed her of new operations underway in Vietnam, and Maxis travelled there to meet him. Unfortunately, there was once again a variable Maxis didn't consider: Eddie. Knowing Maxis' whereabouts, Eddie informed Dr. Peck, his Omega Group mole, that Maxis would be there soon and gave him specific instructions to actually go against his orders from Kravchenko and throw Samantha Maxis into the Dark Ether. It's claimed that this was to get rid of her, but it's actually likely that Eddie needed this to occur to make Sam stronger. After her recovery by the strike team, Sam was held in Block 8, likely a Project Janus facility, where she was put under immense amounts of psychological strain. While Black Ops 6 characterizes this as straight-up torture, this is clearly not what was intended by Puriluski and the other Cold War writers. The scenes and lines of Maxis in Block 8 are written to parallel Mason's interrogation in Black Ops 1 by Hudson and Weaver. Mason doesn't realize he knows the interrogators until right at the end, shortly before an end-of-the-world scenario plays out, wherein Hudson reveals their identity to Mason and begs him to try and recall the numbers one last time. Finally, Mason is able to, and they prevent World War III. Similarly, in the case of Maxis' interrogation, Eddie puts her under severe strain in order to awaken her latent powers that have been made exceptionally strong by the Dark Ether. Throughout her time in Block 8, Eddie tells Sam that he genuinely believes she is a good person, in spite of everything, and in the final interrogation, she physically smashes the glass to the interrogation room, almost certainly seeing Eddie's face. By the time we reach the last sections of Black Ops Cold War, Sam seems to have recalled the actions her and Weaver took, which ended up taking the lives of Samuel and Mary Richtofen. She feels genuinely penitent for her actions, and furthermore believes that the director has actually done what needs to be done. Ultimately though, her decision to face the Forsaken is her choice, despite the fact that she was manipulated into it by Richtofen. And she did face great torture and interrogation at the hands of Richtofen, but it wasn't just for revenge and torture by him for what she did. It was in part for the goal to trap the Forsaken by awakening her powers, which makes for a more nuanced, villainous or anti-hero-like character as opposed to just being straight up cruel. just for cruelty's sake. The final piece of Eddie's plan to contain Zykov relies on Sam's presence, using her newly awakened abilities to contain Zykov's attacks. Sam will then be able to charge the etheric cannons to destroy Zykov's physical form. And when Zykov's core is exposed, that links him to the deepest depths of the Dark Ether. Sam can fly in, destroying him and allowing his essence to be contained. As I mentioned, Zykov represented a fundamental nihilism. Even though Zykov didn't give in to despair in the way a lot of normal humans did in the Dark Ether, he chose to make despair over humanity his entire philosophy and reason for existence. He became the personification of doom and despair. Samantha, on the other hand, in spite of everything that occurred, she never gave up hope. Once she realized the gravity of her past actions towards Eddie and his family, she showed immense regret, and in effect, sought to make things right. Whether or not they intended Sam to die or just go into the Dark Ether in Cold War, we can't know. But the fact of the matter is, it was at least in part her choice. As she lamented, she is a good person, and she knows what she needs to be done before plunging herself into the Forsaken's core, overconfident that she would be able to win the war against him and close the Dark Ether from the inside. We have these pieces of intel that back up her motivations and further explore the director's discussion with her.
Hello, Sam. How are you today?
I am alive. Yes. Still alive.
Are you scared?
I am not scared. I have overcome much worse things.
I don't mean scared of being here. I mean, are you scared of yourself?
I am not a bad person.
You are a good soul.
I want to believe that. I have to believe that.
You don't need to prove it to me. I know.
Why can't you just let me go? Why can't you just put me out of my misery?
Sam, I would never give up on you. You don't know how much power you really possess, what your gift truly is.
And you want to take it from me?
No. I want to help you learn how to use those gifts for the good of us all.
I don't understand.
The Forsaken is almost upon us. And only you can stop it.
I'll see you soon. Real soon. Weaver wants me to sit this one out, but he's not really calling the shots anymore. Maybe he never was. The director is the one who knows what needs to happen. Maybe he always has. But this is my choice. I know what must be done. If you do run into the folks at Requiem, tell them I said hello.
Black Ops 6 uses the fate of Samantha Maxis as a driving factor in the narrative, and this makes a lot of sense. Her fate is uncertain and the characters need a motivation to pursue. S.A.M. The AI built from Samantha Maxis' consciousness informs the Terminus crew that if they follow her instructions, they can bring Samantha Maxis back from the Dark Ether. As a quick aside, we know that the SAM AI was built from Samantha's own personality and consciousness due to her quote in Terminus that I'll play for you now.
This is a classified network. Identify yourself.
My name is Strauss. My associates and I need urgent assistance to escape this facility.
Strauss? Oscar Strauss? Are the others with you?
It's not Sam. It can't be Sam.
You are speaking with the Synaptic Algorithm Module. Call me Sam.
Explain yourself. Why do you sound like Agent Maxis?
She was my source code. The true Samantha Maxis sacrificed herself to save your world.
Yeah. May she, rest in peace.
Do not worry, Pat. I do not share her grievances. My priority is to get you all off that island.
This was supported by intel in Black Ops Cold War, which indicated that the director was actively monitoring her brain, which is outright said, as you can see highlighted on screen, which was later used to provide an accurate simulation of her cortex referenced in Black Ops 6's intel.
July 14, 1989. The time is 9:35 a.m. and I am going to attempt to synchronize the Synaptic Algorithm Module's lower and higher functions for the first time. Commencing low-level startup procedures.
Voice routines, online. Memory interface, online. Systems interface, online. Loading memory lattice. Loading complete.
So far, so good. Let's align, synchronize, and then start her cortex simulation.
Loading cortex scans. Loading complete. Synchronizing fabric. Synchronization complete. Adding cortex daemon to process list. Rebooting.
How are you feeling, Sam?
Where am I?
Voice modulation will need to be modified. Recalibrate GPS. She shouldn't need to ask where she is. You are with friends. My name is Edward. You are my guest.
Good afternoon, Edward.
You just arrived. I'm looking forward to spending time together. Tell me, what do you remember before waking up?
I remember a knife. A promise I couldn't keep. A morning that would never come.
Do not worry. You are safe here.
Blood on my hands. But where are my hands? I don't understand.
Sam, those sound like nightmares. They are not real.
How? How do I know what's real and what isn't?
Because I will help you. Would you like that?
Yes, I would like that very much. Thank you, Eddie.
The new intel and reckoning seems to link back to this that I mentioned at the start of the video, but we'll discuss that a little later and why it's a problem. But one thing is for sure, the SAM AI was created on brain scans of the real Samantha Maxis after coming back from the Dark Ether on Firebase C when Requiem were trying to examine and understand her powers. And this brain scan is from then, and not current day as of Black Ops 6 suggesting she's alive. The SAM AI's motivation she has laid out before the characters to bring back Samantha Maxis is immediately flipped on its head moments into Reckoning, where we are unceremoniously told that Samantha Maxis is actually dead. No fanfare, no big reaction from the characters particularly, just that she is dead. Gray is really the only one that gives a great line that I'll play for you now, reacting to her death and professing she effing loved her. I'll play that now.
You heard Sam. She's all that's left of Maxis. Don't you want some piece of your mate to live on?
I want all of her. I fucking loved her. I don't know if I could handle something else wearing her face. I just don't.
By this point, we already know that the SAM AI lied to us about bringing Maxis back, and instead wants to create a body that her AI consciousness can inhabit. So the killing of Sam just seems unnecessary. Interestingly enough, they could have very easily argued that she died as a result of the events in Forsaken, and do that in the map. But the logic behind it is still all over the place. It would have been so great for us to actually get a cutscene as well if ZYKOV did actually kill Sam. A cutscene, for example, maybe her inside the containment core. At least then it wouldn't be off screen if she is actually dead after all, and we could see the emotional weight of her getting killed off, a character we've been attached to literally since 2008. Furthermore, the primary intel that discusses this in Reckoning is just outright incorrect about the fate of Samantha Maxis and the Forsaken. Not in the sense that it forgets an obscure intel fact, but in the sense that it actually just blatantly contradicts events we see in the Forsaken ending itself. I'll play those two pieces of intel for you now.
Eddie, I would like you to reconsider your stance on creating a body for me.
Not this again. Sam.
Hear me out. Think how beneficial it would be if I had a physical form. You're always talking about how you wished you had an extra set of hands.
That's not what
And the explorations into Dark Ether come at such a high cost. Even with my help, you have lost so many people already. We both know that in my current form, my consciousness cannot survive exposure to the Dark Ether for long. Prolonged exposure to the alien physics there would cause my quantum fields to collapse. My mind would implode. But organic matter isn't impacted the same way. If I had a physical body, just think of how much I could accomplish, of how many lives I could save.
Typical. You would gloss over the potential ramifications, the unchecked control and freedom you would then have.
No, we would be partners. If you gave me this,
You don't actually expect me to believe that.
Maxis was loyal to her friends. You cannot suggest I wouldn't be the same.
Ha! Loyal Maxis. Here's a story. In all her sanctimonious arrogance, Maxis went into the Dark Ether to fight the Forsaken and protect her friends. She picked a fight she foolishly thought she could win, and the Forsaken eviscerated her for the trouble. No one mourned her there. Her death was just a consequence of the natural order. The Dark Ether simply did its part and absorbed the scraps that were left. The end. Now, let me ask you this. What on earth makes you think you could do any better?
There must be other ways. We still have her DNA. You could build me a body from that. All those cloning projects, I have seen them.
Damn it, Sam, shut up! I'm done having this debate with you. Focus on the project. No more distractions. Soon Franco will locate my father, and I will use the artifact to bring Samuel and Mary back. What I will not do is give in to the whims of some petulant clockwork girl.
Eddie, please. Please. I live with a foot in each world, but I do not belong to either. If I carry on like this, it will destroy me.
Then it will destroy you.
Eddie says here that not only were Maxis' actions in Forsaken due to her own arrogance, overconfident that she would be able to win against the Forsaken, but that when she went into the Dark Ether to fight the Forsaken, she couldn't win this fight, and then it killed her. This is just categorically not what seems to have happened. I don't want this video to turn into a rant, so we'll stay on script, but what on earth is going on? First off, as we've already explained, Sam chooses to go along with Eddie's plan to defeat Zykov. Even if she was partially manipulated, and is certainly a valid interpretation, she certainly didn't act arrogantly. This was a calculated play, and every element of what she did in the boss fight was laid out by Eddie. What's more is that during her time on Firebase C in the Dark Ether, she was literally there for a matter of days, but it was months to her in the realm, of which she was able to conquer everyone in the Dark Ether and become such a powerful being. Most people who enter the Dark Ether just get consumed and die straight away. And come her plunging into the Forsaken, she was way more powerful thanks to those interrogations in Block 8 harnessing her powers. So she should have had even more will to be able to survive. So how on earth was she able to die? This is even confirmed by his message to Project Janus after the fact, where he confirms that Maxis is now no longer an impediment to their plans that we see on the computer screen in the Forsaken's ending. But the far more important aspect, when on earth did Maxis go into the Dark Ether to fight Forsaken? Yes, Yes, she flew into the portal, but as far as we can see, this immediately traps Zykov in the containment chamber. Sure, we could stretch the definition and say she went into the Dark Ether to fight him, but certainly not that he beat her. At absolute worst, it was a stalemate. Finally, to once again refer back to the Maxis intel from Cold War Season 6, nothing indicates that Maxis foolishly thinks she is going to win. Everything she discusses with Requiem, with the director, and with us, the players. The Spawn conversations in Reckoning add even more confusion that'll play now.
The Forsaken wore her down until there was nothing left. Maxis was absorbed by the Dark Ether long ago. Even the artifact cannot recover her. Maxis fought bravely, but in the end the Forsaken consumed her. The awful truth is that she fell to the Dark Ether. Trapped in the sphere with Zykov, Maxis had no chance. Mortally wounded, she yielded to the Dark Ether. Eddie, you let her die inside that orb. You could have saved her.
And risk releasing the Forsaken? Maxis chose her fate. Mary and Samuel did not.
Sergei, you deserve to know. Maxis was obliterated in the Dark Ether. There was never any chance of saving her.
It seems like the story is actually something along the lines of Sam deals the final blow against Zykov, they both end up in containment, and Zykov defeats and consumes Sam inside of the containment sphere. And the containment sphere is somehow also in the Dark Ether simultaneously as the real world, and so Sam has now been reconstituted into the Dark Ether. This just makes very little sense unless the core itself is some kind of threshold and a liminal space between the dimensions. But the entire point of the containment sphere is to separate Zykov from the Dark Ether, so it just is very contradictory. If the sphere is somehow still in the Dark Ether simultaneously, then Zykov still poses a colossal threat. Yes, of course, there's ether inhibitors blocking his power potential, but surely that would be the same for Sam. How could they even then fight if it's both inhibiting their powers? Furthermore, the ending cutscene of Forsaken makes it pretty clear that these are two separate outcomes. Entity acquired, all breaches sealed, Maxis locked within the Dark Ether. The end result of Maxis' arc, to summarize, is that it seems like she's dead, and according to all of the characters, there is no chance of her returning. Perhaps some sort of essence of her still exists within the Dark Ether, as they've been so vague with the wording that this is a possibility, but the current writers have seemingly no intention of bringing her back. As far as I can tell. Yes, I know people are arguing Zykov could be lying, or Richtofen could be lying, or the SAM AI, or maybe, they're just believing Zykov's are lies, but what intention would he even have for lying? Or even Richtofen, especially when, regardless of whether the SAM ending is canon or the Richtofen ending is canon, it's unlikely those threads are going to continue deep into the story of Black Ops 7 with the original characters back being the primary focus. And with Julie Nathanson no longer voicing Samantha Maxis, I would suspect that potentially Treyarch pivoted in their plans with Samantha, and maybe she was going to play a role in which we would have actually attempted to rescue her, but it all have been a lie and a trap by the SAM AI to get what she wants all along. But due to Julie leaving and the fan backlash for her being replaced as the SAM AI, they might have not wanted to do the same to the real character, and so killed her off screen as opposed to something actually epic and emotionally moving that we envisioned when it was being teased throughout Modern Warfare Zombies what happened to Samantha Maxis, rather than confirming that we attempted to rescue her but ultimately failed. We thought it was going to be a really tragic thing for us to see, not just something mentioned in some offhand dialogue when you spawn in on the map. So I really think they could have pivoted due to this. Now it is very well possible that, again, due to the fan backlash of her being killed off screen, even if this wasn't the intention, they could still bring her back in the future, especially because it's off screen, and like what we've seen what happened with Graves or Alex or Stitch, we didn't physically see their deaths, and so they were easily brought back. And the Dark Ether has cloning abilities, so could even clone her. Of course, there's an arm that takes Ava Jansen at the ending of Modern Warfare Zombies, and potentially that could be the SAM AI if that ending is canon, or if the multiverse is returning, or it could be Dr. Grey once she's died and been consumed by the Dark Ether come what happens to Requiem in Urzikstan, especially considering Ava Jansen has a hallucination of them all as zombies, or it could potentially be the Dark Ether or the Warden/Shadowsmiths cloning her body and using her for their own ends. I don't know, but regardless, I think if we do see Samantha Maxis again, it won't be in the way we think. It'll be some kind of corrupted, mutated version in the Dark Ether. But I'll come on to that more in a second. As for Zykov, however, As stated, Zykov ended up in the containment sphere. In the map's marketing, this was an incredibly shocking and cool reveal. To see such an iconic set piece from Cold War return was amazing, but its use in the map is such a waste. First off, Zykov's lines in the intel are bizarre. He seems shocked when the SAM AI imitates his voice, in spite of the fact that he was a master of his strategy and used it repeatedly. This intel on its own is wasted potential in my opinion.
Yes, I think I get it. I see how the etheric currents are focused now. Say it again!
Why must we go through this so many times? I was almost a god. Am I now reduced to your plaything?
It does its little trick, or its brains get scrambled again.
No, enough. I will not. All right. For a noisy abacus, you are most persuasive. Okay, here I go. Insta-kill.
I got it! My turn! Max ammo! Full power! Fire sale! Bonus points! Yes! Easy peasy!
By the great voice, I would not call it easy exactly, but now the student does become the master. Will you just leave me to my misery?
You are fine, but it's not quite right yet. What's missing? Oh yes!
Tear them to pieces.
Yes, this might work after all.
What? That was my voice. What are you?
There are people who must be compelled to get something I need. If I just ask, there is a 97.38% chance they will decline. So you see, I am going to have to be very, very, very convincing.
You are going to impersonate my magnificence to manipulate pathetic mortals.
That is a small part of the scenario I will need to construct in order to make them believe that their decisions are their own. But in a nutshell, yes.
The audacity. I do not hate that.
I think it's got some great elements, but surely Zykov should have recognized Sam employing his own strategy, but he acts as if it's the first time anyone has ever tried this. I don't know if it's just because of these dark ether inhibitors from primordial Ethereum potentially just messing with his brain, and obviously his psyche has completely deteriorated due to all of the torture he's experienced in the containment chamber being trapped in the past 5 years. But onto the far more egregious aspect. Zykov, the man who survived the 400 years, who destroyed gods and worlds, who bent the entire dark ether to his will, and who was outwitted by Eddie, the only person smarter than him, it would seem, is in containment. As heard in the Spawn conversations, he was so dangerous that Richtofen couldn't risk freeing Maxis, who was also apparently within the sphere, because it could release Zykov. This entity, who caused almost an instantaneous global outbreak in the final moments of the Forsaken boss fight, he simply inhabits a robot body that can be killed in a matter of seconds. So why was he not dangerous? Was Richtofen mistaken? Well, if that's the case, Samantha died for no reason. Richtofen could have just put Zykov into a Klaus and got the SAM AI out easily. This side Easter egg not only nerfs the power of an incredible character, but undermines the entire point of the map. It makes sense, lore-wise, that he's been trapped in the sphere for 5 years, he's been weakened and driven insane, maybe even he wanted to die at this moment, and that's why it was so easy. He's no longer the great god he used to be, as he stays in the intel. However, I think if you're going to do this to his character, they should have just left him dead in Cold War, especially because not much is really done with him in this game. I think that would have been such a perfect conclusion and a full circle moment come the ending of Cold War, with how far he came since he sealed the containment chamber from within, to then be sealed away and potentially just become brainless and his dark ether crystals used to mimic Samantha for the Samurai. That would have been a much better conclusion to Zykov's character, instead of him returning in such an anticlimactic way, literally just being around for a few seconds. And him becoming a generic mech, well, it's just not the great character he used to be. I understand if he becomes this weaker fight, or even sacrifices himself due to no longer wanting to be alive, but I think that could have been done in a better way than just becoming a mech. He could have willingly gone. I think that would have been so much better. Worse still though, it seals the fate of Zykov, and much like Samantha, it's now highly unlikely he will return. If they did his death in a more ambiguous way, then at least it leaves it open-ended if writers want to utilize him in the future. In order to protect the Gorg effects, we need powerful life essence. This is the entire reason for releasing and killing the Forsaken, or to power a bioetheric hand cannon. Worse still, it's not even the final form of the gun. According to the logic of Reckoning, Blanchard is at a higher power level than Zykov. Given Blanchard's life essence upgrades the gun far more than the Forsakens ever did. In canon, this is obviously totally untrue, but if we're following canon, releasing Zykov should have immediately been an apocalyptic event, which is the whole point for him being contained in the first place. And also, it's completely contradictory to how Zykov was somehow able to defeat Samantha Maxis, because if he did become so weak by the containment chamber, why was he able to defeat Sam then? Surely she would have been able to easily overpower him. That was the whole point of the Forsaken boss fight to begin with. We weakened his ability so much so, which is why Sam was able to defeat him. Otherwise she wouldn't have been able to. But now it seems he was more powerful than meets the eye, even with him being greatly weakened. It's weird indeed. But let's continue. As discussed earlier in the video, Perseus believed that Maxis may well be the most dangerous threat in the entire world, and so we're essentially too scared to recruit her. Her intelligence is exceptional. Furthermore, a new intel in Reckoning indicates that after her time in the Dark Ether, Samantha's brain actually began to grow a ridiculous amount of new neurons, the intel I mentioned at the start and earlier, implying that she had become super intelligent. If she was already a global threat, surely after her return from Vietnam and unlocking her latent powers, she should have been unstoppable. That's not what happened, though. As mentioned, she was apparently arrogant and picked a fight she couldn't win. If she's allegedly as intelligent as she is meant to be in canon, how on earth could this have happened? Equally, now we have the full story of the death of Eddie's family, which I have a whole video detailing in depth, linked on screen and in the description. You would expect Samantha to have seen through Kruger's ruse, but she bought it completely, making her just seem stupid. She's meant to be a high-class professional, it doesn't make any sense. And her death and defeat of Zykov should have been a heroic sacrifice made by someone who has painstakingly calculated the odds and knows that there is only one way out. Instead, Maxis is reduced to an impulsive and overconfident superhero. Not all how she is ought to have been. So let's describe the brain scan in depth. What exactly is this showing? Because people are saying, well, why show a brain scan from Firebase C if it's not meant to be a hint to her being alive now? Of course, we already knew she had powers, so why show us this via her brain scan? Well, I think it's just showing us the scientific reason for what gives her powers to begin with. Her neurons become heightened so much so that it gives her these powers, and her brain scan literally looks like a universe, which also mirrors her purple eyes, which are just like a universe. And given the Samai's ending, of which she has her purple eyes glow and she has the same powers, is again showing that she has the exact same neurology. And I think this is kind of a teaser towards Ava Jansen in Modern Warfare Zombies as well, which is probably going to tie somehow into Black Ops 7, considering the Warden and or Shadowsmiths are who take her at the end. And she has the exact same glowing purple eyes and powers to Samantha Maxis. So I think this is all it really is, a teaser towards that, a reference to Firebase C. They could bring Samantha Maxis back, but I don't see how this brain scan is any indication of that. The Cold War intel, like I said earlier, confirms that they were monitoring her brain after Firebase C. Sam says she was based on Samantha's source code in Terminus. From Black Ops 6's intel, the Samai references the Blood on My Hands Firebase C intel, showing the version she is based on is right from that time, and confirms she was based on Samantha's Cortex scans. Like I said, I think this is more so a teaser for Ava Jansen, showing how her powers work before she's inevitably back, and this change in brain chemistry is passed on through genetics, which is why Ava Jansen is created to begin with, from Richtofen stealing the eggs of Samantha Maxis and the sperm of Ravenov. and these brain scans probably helped with knowing that. Which, speaking of, if Samantha was alive, it would be crazy to have two people in Black Ops 7 that effectively have the same powers to function plot-wise. For example, if they need a big powerful superhero like Samantha or Ava Jansen to save us from a big threat, they serve the same plot device. Whilst I do think Richtofen/Sam/Forsaken do have reasons to lie, and Forsaken could be lying or mistaken and they believed it, I just don't see how this brain scan is any indication of that. With how swiftly as well the Forsaken is also written off like I've explained, and how quickly they've tied up so many of the dangling plot threads on this map, such as with the assassination of Richtofen's family and Kruger, it wouldn't surprise me if Samantha's death is also rushed/underbaked as a last-minute rewrite due to Julie Nathanson leaving. I highly doubt it was the original plan after all of the Modern Warfare zombies we failed to save her teasing. I think this was supposed to be something we actually saw in the game, or potentially as one of the alternative choices we could make. Seeing as we side with either Sam or Richtofen, maybe Samantha could have been another choice. And the blueprint in the director's office confirms this is from Firebase C and not recent, as the number is the one used for the scans of Samantha's cortex to create a snapshot of Samantha to make the SAM AI. This is not a teaser for Samantha being alive 100% confirmed. She could return and the characters could be lying, sure, but this intel is definitely not a teaser for that. But let's move into the final chapter. Ignoring the issues with the writers, ignoring canon, and just focusing on the map itself, the Gorg effects upgrade just seems like a wasted opportunity. Imagine if it talked to you with Zykov's voice, like a new Apothicon servant. It could have not only become a fan-favourite weapon, but actually allowed him to return in the future. Maybe even have a redemption arc. If the SAM AI merged with Zykov in some way, maybe that could crack his nihilistic ideology and give him some level of hope. But it seems like, unfortunately, Treyarch are not following the path they seem to be setting up in Cold War. There were so many cool opportunities that weren't capitalized on in this map and the game in general, with the Gorg effects. Instead of brutally murdering Blanchard for no reason, what if we were able to use some of Maxis' essence within Zykov to upgrade the gun and have Maxis talk to us in some way? The possibilities for this really were endless, and none of them involved just erasing these characters from the story. But what do you guys think? Even in spite of the fact that it looks like they are gone to me, I'd love for these characters to return, but only in a meaningful way. I think the reason people are mad about the return of the original characters is that their exit from the story was very meaningful. Their sacrifice meant the purging of the cycle, and the ending of that eternal damnation. Despite the fact zombies are now back, it's still not as much suffering as an endless multiverse and stuck in a loop, which seems to be on the precipice for returning. With Sam and Zykov, it seems like they've been killed off totally arbitrarily. So if they could return, which admittedly would require a change in writing mentality, they could actually contribute in a meaningful way before leaving the story with purpose. For Samantha, I suppose Ava Jansen can fulfill her role and acts as a sort of successor to Samantha, but only if Treyarch actually remember to include her in Black Ops 7, we will see. I mean, she surely has to be, but who knows, with how many loose plot threads there's been so far. But there's been little mention of her throughout Black Ops 6, just mentions of the DNA and stuff like that, so surely she has to be in Black Ops 7 in some capacity. But anyways, I'll see you with plenty more content to come. Let me know all of your thoughts. Let me know, do you think Samantha Maxis is still alive and could return? What do you think of the Forsaken's death? What do you think of Samantha's death if it is indeed true that she's dead? It will just be so heartbreaking. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye. To conclude this video, I want to shout out the fact that I finally decided to make a Patreon and Cameo account, both of which will be linked below if you want to help support the channel. On Patreon, you can sign up for the lowest tier of just $1.50 a month to get exclusive access for my Discord, where we can discuss zombies lore, trivia, or whatever you desire. A place where you lot, my community, can better connect. Your names will also appear at the end of videos thanking you. For $5.50 a month, you get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive monthly Q&As. And for $16.50 a month, you again get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive lore videos, such as unpacking niche parts of the Treyarch documents I've been breaking down on my channel that don't as much suit a main channel video. For the highest tier, only for those with the ability to and who really want to help out the channel, you get special bonuses I've yet to determine and verbal shoutouts at the end of every video. Over on Cameo, I can do funny videos reading lines from zombies, memes like, how do we tell tell him birthday wishes for friends or family or whatever else you desire, practically anything. Of course, none of this is necessary, just watching and enjoying the videos helps me immensely and I greatly appreciate it. However, I think it's about time I start setting up additional revenue streams because Zombies' popularity is tumultuous and always goes through ups and downs. As I'm sure you've lately seen on the channel, viewership is down a lot. We go through big highs when new games release, but then during these drought periods, I need more income stability so I don't have to worry as much about it and I can focus more on improving the quality of the content. My highest quality videos are not always the ones that best please YouTube algorithms. So instead, this way I can produce my best work knowing I don't have to think as much about how well the content's going to perform. So if you'd like to support me on Patreon for exclusive content or would like a simple cameo message, you can do so to further support me via the links below, but only if you can afford it and you actually want to help me. Don't feel like you are forced to, don't worry, I'll survive. It would just help relieve some of the pressure during inconsistent periods on the channel so I don't have to solely rely on AdSense revenue and still maintain the sheer quantity and quality of content that I put out. Obviously I pump out literally a boatload of content and some of these are absolutely crazy projects over hour-long videos, so it's a lot on my plate, especially when these videos don't perform particularly well. And I've not been doing many sponsorships lately to help supplement revenue either, so it would greatly help. Thank you for any generous person once again who does kindly support the channel. It means the absolute world and will really help keep this boat afloat.